Everyone, this is Golden from Furious Photog. I've had a request to do hair color changes. Now this is very similar to changing clothing color. However, we're going to do a few different techniques since hair is obviously different and needs to be a little more realistic in the application. Now, I've got a lovely picture from Shutterstock here of a beautiful brunette model. What I'm going to do is change her hair to 3 different tones: red, black, and blonde. Now, when you're changing hair color, you've got to remember one specific thing. It is easier to go from lighter colored hair to darker hair than vice versa. It is almost impossible to change my hair color into something else because black is the absence of color and you're going to have a time actually injecting realistic looking color in there. But like we did with the white shirt, you can take gray and add a little bit of color back in. It'll take some tweaking, but it's a little easier, again, going from light to dark than from dark to light. So if you have a need to change a model's hair that's blonde into black hair, that's easier said than, say, going from a model with jet black hair who needs to be blonde. I would have them actually dye their hair or get a wig for their particular photo shoot. That said, what we've got here is 3 different folders that I've set up: one for red, one for black, and one for blonde. Now, what we're going to do in each of these is I'm going to step you through the process, but the first thing we've got to do is actually get a layer mask set up. You can do this lots of different ways. You can paint masks as you go, but I like to set the mask up at first. So what you're going to do, I'm just going to do a demo here, is use the quick select tool to select as much of the hair as you possibly can before you begin. Of course, using quick select, it's going to select areas that are contrasting, so you might have to go back and readjust. And so what you're going to do here is actually select as much of the model as you can, the model's hair that is, and then apply a layer mask to it. What we're going to do then is go into the refine layer mask tool by double clicking, and we're going to do our adjustments here. Smart radius, start at 10 pixels, and then we're going to go and take the refine edge tool and just paint along the edges of the model's hair just to bring out the finer details. What this is going to do is pull out a lot of extra stuff, get rid of a lot of stuff that we'll have to go back and tweak. However, as you can see, it is taking the roughness out. And because this is hair, those edges do not have to be fully refined. And so what you can do here is then go back using the brush tool and white and actually paint a lot of this stuff back in, trying to stay away from the edges and keeping, like I messed up there, to keep the actual fine hairs visible in the mask itself. And again, the actual edges don't have to be fully refined. We're just using this as a color guide. We're going to actually be brushing away on each individual layer. There we go. The hair is roughly masked. What I'm going to do is default back to the masks I already have set up to make it a little bit easier to go. That said, let us begin by setting up a color saturation, a selective color layer. And what we're going to do with this is first do the red hair. So what we're going to do with this brunette is actually spruce up the reds and yellows in there. It's a little easier to use color selection here. I use it to refine shadows all the time in my shots, but this will let us take the reds, for example, and boost those up. So you want to lower the amount of cyan in there. You want to increase the amount of magenta and increase the amount of yellows in there. Make sure that these are masked off like that. What we can do from here is fine tune the selection by bringing the black levels up or down, which will increase the brightness or decrease the brightness of the reds. And we're also going to do the same with the yellows. So we can increase, 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 just to kind of give you an idea of the hair color changes. Now you can do different layer blend modes, etc. I tend to lower the opacity down a little just so we get a more natural look. And from there as well, what you can do is let me set up a folder here that actually has this stuff in there. That actually has a curves adjustment layer that you can use to bring in more richness to the shot. So in a nutshell, that is red. Let me go back to my pre-made one here. Perfect. Now, what we're going to do for black, it's a little more intense, is we're going to set up a new folder. Make sure that we have our layer masked off. And what we're going to do is take, as examples show here, hue saturation, curves, and we're going to refine the highlights. So first off, we're going to do hue saturation adjustment, and we're going to take the color out. Again, mostly reds and yellows, so bring those all the way down, and yellows as well. Nothing is completely black, so what you want to do here is make sure that it does not go totally dark, which it hasn't done here, and we might be able to drop this down a little bit just to have a little more of that brown coming through. Now, that said, what we were going to do is a curves adjustment layer. So we're going to take a curves adjustment layer and just bring that down just to add, again, some richness. Now, it's a little flat looking up here on the top and on this side. So what we can do here is add a new layer, go to our paintbrush, make sure we have a soft bristle brush selected with white, and I'm simply going to paint where the highlights are and give her a little bit of body and shine in her hair. Now, that looks kind of atrocious, doesn't it? If you had it on screen mode, if it was slightly different, let's say a blonde color, which we'll do in blonde, it would blend a little bit brighter. But here, there's nothing more to blend, it's white. What I'm going to do is blend if. So double click the layer, and from here, what you're going to do is select alter option, and we're going to adjust this wider like so. And we're going to adjust this down like so, just to add a little more body to the hair. And what you can do is you can do it again in other spots where you need to add more things, more sheen and shine, as you can see. So voila, we've changed the hair to black. Of course, you can refine this when you have a little more time, but the most difficult color that we're going to accomplish is actually blonde. And for this one, we're going to use the selective color, we're going to use a color wash, and then we're going to adjust the selective color and curves as well as add the highlights. So what we're going to do is create another new folder, make sure our layer mask is on there, and within this we're going to use our selective color again. And what we're going to do is boost up the yellows. So what we're going to do is make sure yellows are boosted and that the reds are kind of tinted more yellow as well. We're going to drop this down just so it's not really neon yellow. And then from there, what we're going to do is, if you remember, we're going to use a color wash. So we're going to take our empty layer, find a nice golden blonde color somewhere, somewhere in here, and we're just simply going to paint on top of the hair where we would like to see that blonde color come into play. Now, this is a blonde tinted color, almost like a wash. So what you're going to do here is use screen mode to brighten it up. We're going to drop the opacity down a bit, and we're going to also use blend if, so it will blend. Hit the option key, so it will blend a little more and look a little more natural with the highlights there. And then of course we can drop the opacity down a little bit more. Using curves adjustments, we can adjust the tones, giving it that richness again. And what I'm going to do is add another layer with white, hitting D defaults it, and we're going to go back and again add those particular highlights just where we think she would have them, and double click and use blend if again to blend those particular regions, selecting a different layer mode, overlay, soft light, screen. Screen tends to be the brightest, that's going to give you the most pop. And it's a little bit yellow, so what I'm going to do is take a hue saturation layer, hit yellow, and just drop that opacity down a little bit. Sorry, saturation down a little bit, darken it, maybe boost it a little, shift the colors just a slight bit, and drop the opacity till we get a nice color. And then one final thing we can do is it's very dark on this back, so what we can do is go down to black and actually just bump up the red levels and the yellow levels a little bit, and then drop the opacity down, mask it because it was already masked, and then we can paint those colors that were in the shadows to kind of bring some color to those black shadows. I'm going to drop that down a little bit more so it's not as noticeable. So there we have it. Blonde hair from brunette hair. Now that said, a reminder, it is easier to go from light to dark than it is from dark to light. So remember that as you are doing your projects. Hopefully this helped you. Thank you very much. Please follow me on YouTube if you haven't clicked subscribe, and also follow me online at Facebook, Furious Photog, Instagram, Furious Photog, and Twitter, One Furious Photog. Appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you later.